all-female team, and except you, I noticed.
That's the biggest compliment you've ever given me before. Calling me a man. Thanks, James.
All right, let's move on to next session. I mean, there's not really a good or bad anymore. So let's talk about broken promises, since let Richard kind of take this one a little bit. So Richard, you wrote a string of articles all about broken promises, I guess, to the community, and a lot of them kind of revolved around Kickstarters.
I wish I'd never done it. Honestly.
Seriously?
Oh shit! The martyrdom begins.
Wait. Is this troll?
No, it's
really?
Not Stephen. Do you know what? Wish I'd never fucking done it. Straight up now.
Why?
Like,
with all the exposure you guys.
Seriously, why?
It's ultimately achieved nothing. Like the same lying fuckheads that aren't keeping the promises, they're still gonna do that. They're still gonna make a shit ton of money in esports. That's still gonna happen. The community don't even really give two fucks. Like, you can say to the community, like, these guys are doing something bad. Oh, you're witch hunting, bro. Why you got a witch hunt for?
That's not true. I've seen the reaction from the community, and that is not completely what it's like right now.
I just don't think that it's cool that a bunch of guys lie and take your money. But I mean, if you like it, cool. There's the fact that broken promises become almost like a meme, which, like, that fucks me off, because, like, the title was deliberately sensationalist. I make no bones about it. You have to come up with a catchy title, right, to get anyone to even read a piece of journalism these days. So, you
sound like a man going through depression right now.
I know. Yeah, I thought this was a great thing for you. What do you mean?
Listen, honestly, I if I could go back in time now, I'd just let these cunts just fucking rob everyone and just leave it at that. Like, seriously.
What happened to
Is he trolling you guys?
no regrets?
Well, hashtag no regret. It's a little bit different when people are trying to hack your Facebook, or you wake up to a fucking death threat every day, like, because you pointed out that someone else didn't keep a promise, like, you're the bad guy. Like, the esports community have got a very warped perception about what's fair and what's just. But that and the fact that it's kind of made me a cliche, like, the only journalism I do is somehow sensationalist or watchdog based. Like, people eschew an entire 10-year career on the basis that I...
Here's a serious question concerning that.
Oh, man, okay.
Do you think that all the extra money that Tumba got channeled to him via those Kickstarters was used to send those death threats to you? Do you think that's where all of the extra Sons of StarCraft money went?
I actually hold Tumba personally responsible for all death threats that I received. And we are taking it with my legal team because my feelings got really hurt. No,
Just walk me through it a little bit. Can you just walk me through it a little bit less emotionally? Because I'm not emotionally. We're basically Sons of StarCraft. We're like, we're gonna do a documentary, and people gave him money, and it was one guy or two guys.
But this is not the problem. You're even only talking about one of the articles. It was a series. I mean, it started with,
there was like 2 or 3 articles. Yeah.
But basically, you said, hey, they got this money and they haven't done anything. What the fuck? That's basically the underlying statement, right? Like, they took this money and haven't done what they said.
Essentially,
and so, when you said that, what bullshit did you get back from saying that? I would prefer the bullshit to come not from the community, but from, like, any industry figures that were involved in the projects. Like,
here's the fucked up thing. Like, if you're a personality in esports, and I know you know this, James, and I know Thorin knows this, and I know Steve knows this, everyone knows this. Maybe not Chris, because he's a bit vanilla.
Oh my god.
Chris is the personality.
Would you say vanilla or more like lemon flavored?
Well, I don't know.
Somebody's got to be vanilla here, man.
Right, after a few more beers, I will tell you what flavor ice cream Chris is. But let's stick to this. No, but, like, seriously, you know what it's like, right? Okay. You as an anonymous Reddit user or an anonymous forum user, you have the right to say whatever the fuck you want. If anyone censors you, they're evil. If you're a personality or you've got some presence in the esports scene and you say something, then you're unprofessional immediately. It doesn't matter. I could be saying the same as what everyone else has said, and I was. I didn't get the scoop on Sons of StarCraft being a big load of money grabbing bullshit where some prick got to have a jolly up with his mates in a foreign country at your expense. Like, everyone on Reddit was already coming around to that way of thinking anyway.
Yeah, we're not just talking about Sons of StarCraft. We're talking about Pizza.gg and the Root House, and so there were other figures in the community.
But since James so eloquently put it front and center in the discussion, so you I'm just saying what other people have said before, but what I did was I tried to go out and get statements about it, right, and unearth new information. And I did.
Yeah, but like with the backlash from not the community, because if you're going to get upset over what people say on the internet, then I'm very sorry, but
I don't even think you got man.
Look, man.
Like,
actually, I find that quite a spurious argument, because I think on the one hand it's like you know me, I often say like I don't give a fuck, but there's a difference between saying like, I mean, for example, let's have a look at the Twitch TV chat. You're fat, you've got a neck beard. I mean, that's all true. I can't even necessarily argue with that. But
comments, I shouldn't have wrote those.
Yeah, it's all right. But like. I'm not going to get upset over shit like that. But when people are trying to, like, it's like you've committed some sort of mortal sin, all of a sudden it's death threat worthy, or people are trying to hack your Facebook, or shit like that, and it's about your personal shit. Like, for what? Like, I'm trying to. It's not about not being an Artosis fan, or you're getting cyberstalked by these fucking weirdos on Reddit. So like the minute anything with your name in it gets posted, like no one's going to see it. So they're effectively trying to devalue your entire career and maybe even get you fired. I mean, that's the other way that goes on that no one talks about. So yeah, okay, I don't get upset over harsh words over the internet, but when it's like, hang on, guys, I consider myself on that argument to be on the actual side of almost like righteousness. Like these guys made a bunch of promises, took a bunch of money, did fuck all with it. We should all be collectively upset. That devalues esports as a whole, and all the people who supported that project should feel really bad about it. But yeah, I was really surprised with the backlash, and not just from the community, but like you say, from figureheads, people who I had previous relationships with. I mean, like, I don't know if I want to dredge it all up again. Like when you're doing an end of year review, like some hatchets have been buried since then. Like me and Total Biscuit, like I love him. He was around here for Christmas dinner. It was great. We had a wonderful time together. No, like we get along now. We talk. We have a dialogue instead of him just saying I'm a piece of shit, which is fantastic for me. It was like imagine falling out with Artosis, right? Lovable Twilight Artosis. Imagine that, right? Like this beautiful spectral white. He's just so gorgeous to look at. And we did a show together, me and Chris. With Artosis, and I was so pleased and psyched to actually meet Dan and have a conversation with him because I really respected what he did. And because I asked him about the documentary, that was like, you're fucking dead to me. Like what, man? I just want to know what's going on. I'm just trying to do my job. And there was like no respect there. And then the shit that came after it, like non-stop. Tumba fucking rolling out of bed and just bombarding me at like 6 a.m. about all this shit, like I'm killing esports, and then trying to claim it was all tongue in cheek and shit. It's like it's not cool, Like I mean, you can laugh about it, you can laugh it off, but like if I could go back in time, like 100% honestly, I'd rather not have had the hassle and the stress, and the pressure it put me on career wise as well. Because,
if you have the opportunity to go back in time and you don't want to write it, just write a rough draft and forward me the article.
Give it
I'll post
Steve.
it on my website.
Dude, you could do it at a BC Desk. He just posted it nicely.
Which in itself is almost like part of the problem. It's like I feel what I haven't done is like if I'd maybe done a few more extreme things like you, Steve, like if I'd used some of the colourful language, or if people had seen my penis, I think by now it would be like acceptable for me to go like completely ham. But I'm not. I'm in this twilight where it's like if I say anything, it's always got to be qualified. Like it doesn't matter. It's not even enough to just produce evidence that someone stole from someone else anymore. Like the League of Legends moderators routinely delete my stuff now because they consider it to be bad journalism. I find that really distressing.
I mean, to be fair, they delete a lot of shit. Fuck the League of Legends. You mean the Riot moderators, right?
Can I just ask, Thorin, are you okay? I know you shot up during the break, but you seem to.
No, I was gonna get.
Are you crashing already?
I lost the fucking will to live after you spent like 45 minutes talking about whether or not virtual card games can become esports, and then like going in depth about that shit. Like fuck me, there's like we've already got like 5 esports that exist now that are in a shithole. Can we talk about those maybe? It's the end of the year. Let's talk about stuff that didn't happen this year and might happen in the future that hasn't happened yet.
ChanManV,
fucking review show.
I mean, We're trying to talk about everything that happened this year, man. Everything that
I was
happened
talking
this
about
year.
anything. We've talked about League of Legends, Dota 2, and now you started talking about, like, I don't even know what we're talking about now.
Well, we're talking about journalism. That's what we're talking about. And
This is actually
I
the
wanted to get.
subject that should be most
I mean,
close
that's
to your
exactly
heart,
what we're
you know?
talking. I mean, that's kind of what you do too. So I mean, what do you think about all this, Thorin? I mean, look at Richard's regretting even releasing these articles, which I thought did good for the community. So it kind of disheartens me to hear that Richard is regretting
Yeah,
this.
but they did half and half. Like here's the biggest problem. Okay, I once said this statement years ago to a friend, and it was actually about some CS knowledge. Okay, there was a player who I thought was really good, who at the time was very much maligned. He was like a role player in a team, and even though his team was winning everything, people would say, "Oh, they should cut this player. He's really bad." But I actually noticed that even though his skill wasn't very good, he did like these really key roles that no one else in the game at the time could do for the best teams. You used to just have another skilled player and he'd kind of half-ass that sort of role. And so I used to say to my friends, like, they don't get it. Like, this guy's like one of the absolute best in the world at that one role. Well, then I waited. I didn't write an article about it at the time, right? Because I thought, who gives a fuck? Like, there's only me thinks that. There's only me cares about it. No one would even want to read this article. So I didn't write the article. 6 months later, everyone had already come around to this same opinion, right? And now it's like taken for granted that this player is a great role player. Exactly what I just described there. Everyone agrees with it, right? But here's the thing. Like I said about the Taipei Assassin Season 2 things, everyone now acts as though it was always the case that way. Oh no, I always knew that he was a great player. I always knew. I never thought he should be caught. In fact, we all did. What are you talking about? No one ever thought he was shit. That sums up all of these topics we're talking about now. Because what happens is everyone who before was like, give him time. You know, maybe the documentary will be good. Oh, you know, it takes a lot, like 3 years to edit 10 minutes of footage. You know, $700 million and a full studio. Everyone who was saying all that shit eventually realized what a cretin they were. So they quickly, because none of us remember who the fuck these people are, they're random Reddit names. They quickly just hopped on the bandwagon of like, oh, I always knew it was trash. I knew it was bullshit. So that's why if Richard writes these articles, he can't win. He's either an asshole who's just doing it for hits and he doesn't know what he's talking about, or, well, we already know that, man. Why are you just trying to use that to get hits as well? It's like, you can't win either way. And so you just end up in this stupid...
Well, I mean, I agree with that, but you said something earlier, Thorin. Fuck, what were we talking about?
No one knows.
No, fuck. We were talking
Hearthstone.
about something earlier.
We were talking
and
Hearthstone.
No, like an hour and a half ago, where Thorin was saying something about how people were doing a certain thing, but they weren't being upfront about it, and that you wouldn't mind if they
League of
do that.
Legends.
League of Legends, yeah.
You wouldn't mind if you were doing that thing if you were just upfront about it, right? I'm just saying that there are things that you could do where even if you're kind of an asshole, this is something that's always bothered me, and I'm not complaining to any person in particular here, but this is something that I'm very upfront about it, right? Every fucking thing that you do in your entire fucking life is marketing. Everything. Even if you say it's not, and even if you make a post that it's not, everything you do is marketing, right? So like when I did like the $32,000 in one day charity for Doctors Without Borders with Sheth, right? Or when I did the thing where I came back and I helped that the Game Heart guy, donate, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 in a day to that guy. Even though I was doing that to help those other things, I am not ignorant of the positive. Holy shit! What? Oh.
Did it just get out
Hey,
the
what's up,
cage?
Sorry, no, he just like. I think he got out from a nap. What's up, Nathan?
Oh, God, this is marketing, isn't it? This is fucking
marketing, right?
marketing.
This is
I heard the
Unfiltered,
girls love this
baby.
shit. No.
Direct marketing at
seriously,
cat
seriously.
lovers,
No. But seriously, whenever you're involved in events like that, there's always going to be a positive effect on your marketing, right? Like if I'm involved
Steve
in a
wants
charity
us to know
stuff,
he's a caring person.
I love.
That's right,
Can
that's
you give me?
right.
Can you give me a kiss?
He's gonna kiss his cat soon too.
Aw.
Great person.
Okay, here.
I'm gonna
No,
watch his
but-
stream so much more now.
No, but I'm just saying that anything that you do always has an effect on how you're marketed, right? Even if it's a charity drive, even if you're not making any money off it directly. So it just strikes me a little bit odd for Richard when you say, I wish I would have never done that because there are some negative repercussions. That would sound to me like a theme saying, man, I put a lot of work into this charity stuff when I raised that $10 million for charity, and I didn't make any money off my Twitch stream. And it's like, I'm pretty sure that the exposure that you've gotten and the added attention drawn to yourself over the past, you don't think it's worth it?
Do you want to know why? Here's the thing, Steve. Do you want to know why those articles got wrote in the first place? I honestly thought this was going to be like my last year in esports.
Sure.
Like I just reached a point where I was just fucking sick. I just absolutely sick. The bullshit and the same assholes making money in the same ways, and the community getting took for a ride. And like I just hit a point where I was like, I knew the minute I finished typing the first one. And I've been heading towards it anyway with all the editorials and stuff, but like I just knew this is gonna be awful. Like you're gonna wake up tomorrow and the shit you're gonna get is gonna be outrageous. and it was.
You don't think the positive exposure that you've gotten as a result? I think that it made you.
Who does that benefit though? Like who does positive? No, how the fuck does it benefit me? I work for a company. I get paid the same if 10 people read an article. See, I'm not in the same line of work as you. Where
you gotta. Well, I know, but fucking get a new contract. Then. What the fuck? You don't get any kind of commission based on the amount of viewers that read an article for you. You can't increase
because I'm a journalist. Yeah, no, but it's not even about how esports works. That's just not how journalism works. Like, you're paid a retainer to write for a company. You write for that company, and it benefits you when no one reads your shit because you ain't getting fired. And if 1 million people read your shit, you then can't cash in and say, well, look at that, man. I'm on the, I fucking sold you.
Yeah, but if your average article, but you're not stupid. If your average article gets so many viewers and you know that you command a certain audience, then when it comes time for you to negotiate or renegotiate a contract with said company, you're going to have that. Like if Joe Schmo, I've ran like a little itty bitty small StarCraft 2 tournament, wanted to go write for a certain website, and you wanted to go write for a certain website, you would never settle for the same amount of payment as the other guy.
I turned down work with other companies. I've been offered this year. I've turned it down. Because I want to be like a loyal guy and stay with a company that helped build me up. I've talked to people about it. The company knows.
Richard, is that company helping you now?
Well,
that's exactly what I said when I left Root. Right? That's exactly what I said when I left Root, and they wouldn't support me when my dick was all over the internet, and then I realized.
It's the thing. Like, I don't think it's good for a journalist to be like an esports celebrity. I think if you become an esports celebrity and like you're trying to do journalism,
it's not just celebrity. It's not just celebrity. I mean, I think you got respectability from that article because I don't think the community as a whole reacted negatively to it. Because a lot of it ended up being true, and then those organizations or people
what
reacted
Chris,
from that.
Was exactly what always happens to Reddit, and Steve knows this as well as I do. The circle jerk went my way to begin with. Like, the way it was jerking was great. Like, I was getting covered in jizz. It was awesome. The circle jerk was all about raining down on Richard Lewis and how brave he was and all this bullshit language. Then what happened was people noticed how strong the jerk was and how much jizz was all over me, and they went, we can't have this, so they jerked the other way and covered all the other people, the people who've been robbing them already in jizz. So we'll stop talking about jizz for now, but yeah, so that was exactly what happened. The circle jerk, like, literally, it started with me, and I thought, oh fuck, maybe I have done a good thing. Nah, I'd say it wasn't even 50-50. Like, I'd say it was probably 60-40 by the end. People just going, oh, I mean, like that phrase that annoys me so much. You're just trying to be relevant. Point me to an irrelevant journalist. Like, like the idea, like I'm gonna. Well, actually, no, because there are some.
No, this is a good topic though, right? Because like Destiny should be able to appreciate this. Think of all the people, Destiny, who post on Reddit, right? And they're under the people who don't know how CPM works on YouTube, and so they think if you have a channel where you get 20,000 views, you make like $1,000 off that every time, which is like a ludicrous amount of money. Okay, and so as a result, they build their own assumptions off that are totally stupid. Well, it's even worse in journalism because people have this notion, right, that like you're saying, don't you get it if you get loads of hits? Don't you get more money? Like every second I ever spend on a CS:GO article or a StarCraft 2 article, I'm sort of like wasting my time, because if I even wrote a subpar League of Legends article that got to the front page of Reddit there, I'd get 10 times more hits. So every article I write, I'm actually almost taking hits away from myself, but because I want to write the StarCraft 2 article, okay. But then every idiot on Reddit will say stuff like he's saying there, like you just did this for the hits, as though either he makes money off that, or somehow you can do that. Like, I can't think of any good journalist who ever does stuff just for the hits. Some of the shit ones try it, but they're so bad at it, it gets downvoted because they don't do a good job of it, You actually have to have talent to write these articles.
I love the fact that can I just say something before?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say, I love the fact that every comment we've had so far about journalism, it's always about, and this is what Reddit thought of me.
Well, but I mean, it's funny. It sounds Reddit is a large driving force right now.
According to Reddit.
That is
it sounds funny. It sounds funny, but there are a lot of companies right now that are investing a lot of advertising shit into fucking getting that social media shit going. Reddit is becoming a pretty big. Like,
I think
there's been a lot.
So Richard,
definitely.
So Richard,
Real
Go ahead,
fast, real
Steve.
fast, real
Let's go.
fast. I understand what you're saying, Thorin, and that you don't do it just for the hits. It's just something that it's just something that I get really uncomfortable when people say, when people pretend like they're not even cognizant of it. You know, like I understand. Like I said, like when I did the Game Hard stuff, I did that because I like the game. One, I like the Game Hard software. I think it does look really nice. Two, the guy doesn't have any major support in the StarCraft community, which bothered me because if you don't, then you get fucked in everything. And three, because I knew that if I, positioned myself in such a way that I would come back to play StarCraft 2 while supporting another thing, it makes me look really fucking good. That wasn't my goal. Like, I didn't start out that day like, I want to get something that makes me look like a hero and then come back and play the game. Like, that's not what I started at. Let's see all the ideas I can list. But it is something that I'm aware of. And I would never, and I'm not saying that you're disingenuous, but I do think it's a bit disingenuous for me to come back and say, like, whoa, guys, like, I wasn't doing this just for the positive attention. I didn't even know that I would get any positive attention. I was doing it because I like Game Hard. When in reality, I do like Game Hard, and I did like to do it, but I am aware of all the positive benefits of that marketing as well, you know?
And that's the key word. That's the key word in what you're talking about there, Steve, is positive. I had no idea how it was going to play out. Like, none at all. Like, it could have been, like, the fantasy, the journalistic fantasy, that everyone's just going to raise you up on some fucking gold, podium and just carry you to the promised land. Like, this guy saved esports, wicked. Like, I mean, I'm not even really necessarily interested in that, but it is nice. It's nice to get a fucking reach around. Like, when every other day you're getting fucked in the ass, it's just nice. It's a nice, pleasant surprise. And that's what being an esports journalist is, by and large. So, it would have been nice. But it could have gone that way.
But you got it. You did get that immediately after.
Bullshit. No, I don't think that. It certainly doesn't feel that way. It didn't feel that way. And this is the other thing. Like, you're talking about positive benefits. It is in no way positive to me to have somebody with a much bigger mouthpiece, like, for example, Total Biscuit or a Tasteless or an Artosis. Because I'm a journalist, I'm never going to be as big a celebrity as the other people. They can badmouth me and say I'm a shill, I'm a liar, I'm a terrible journalist to an audience. That's the only thing they'll hear about me. They'll probably never even read one of my articles. They will just know to avoid them in future. And that's exactly what happened off the back of that. So on the one hand, people might think, oh, you got all this positive attention. It was a hideous, hideous slog. And having to write an article, which was 0.5 or 1.5, I can't remember what I called it, and basically point out, look at the attack. Look at the coordinated attack. And, that's why I was proud of doing that. Even though it almost had no journalistic merit, it was literally just laying it out and saying, look at what the fuck is going on here. For pointing out that people have took your money and not delivered promises, look at the shit I'm getting. But it was awful. Seriously. Are people phone calling my bosses who directly employ me? And let's be honest, it's not as if I've skirted controversy my entire career anyway. They must always be thinking, if we're being brutally honest about it, at what point is the shit gonna outweigh the hits? Shit versus hits is the formula when you're employed doing what I do, because no one values journalism. I've been fortunate in a lot of ways, and people were ringing them up and they were like, we ain't gonna work with you again, we're gonna contact your sponsors, we're gonna try and have this pulled, we do a lot of business with this company, we're gonna make sure they don't advertise on your website. That's what people did in the light of me pointing out that a bunch of people stole from the community. That's exactly the shit I got. And I had to sit down and have talks with the bosses. The end of year review was very interesting. So yeah.
I mean, is that what it's based on? I mean, is that what it's based on here? Just like what your bosses have told you? Because a lot of this stuff is
emails. I've seen the emails. I've seen the correspondence. It's not like some myth they've made to keep me in line. It's absolutely true. And this is what I mean. Whenever people talk about circle jerks in esports, again, James talks about the Reddit thing, and people talk about how the old boys network doesn't exist. Of course it does. Everyone's juiced in with everyone else, and if you do something that's not popular, it's not the community that can take your job away. It's other people. People who'll then smile to your face and pretend that everything's cool.
That seems a little weird to me because there are so many people that make a living literally trying to incite people, like the clickbait articles. If you look at, I don't know how familiar you are with them in the United States, but the people like the Rush Limbaughs or the Glenn Becks or the Billy Cunninghams or the Sean Hannitys who literally will make an insightful statement like Obamacare, or the death panels in Obamacare are killing Americans for the health insurance. They make statements like that for the sole purpose of, because they know that the more kind of insightful activity that they can spur up with their articles, the more hits they'll get. And those hits do kind of become the bottom line, unless you like crazy overstep your boundaries. And I don't think that anything you wrote in that Broken Promises article is even close to overstepping any kind of boundary. You didn't say anything racial or hateful. It was just talking shit to some StarCraft people. Like what kind of sponsor is seriously going to drop any of the websites that you write for because you wrote an article criticizing some of the StarCraft people?
But we know it happens. It does happen.
What sponsor contacted you guys and said like, we're not going to support you anymore because
No, it was
actually like that?
They were going to ring sponsors and tell them about.
Yeah.
stuff.
But what would you like? In my instance, in my instance, if you contact a sponsor, you would go, Destiny's a bad person because he said gook on stream, right? That would be like what you would say. What would they say when they call your sponsor? Richard Lewis is a bad man because he told some people that they broke promises to the community and stole money. What would you even say to the sponsor there? Like, what would...
Yeah, right. What have we been talking about prior to this? Esports is riding a popularity train. We're still so reliant on hits and persona, bullshit, right? So what you have to do is you have to be as popularist as possible. That's why so many esports celebrities are so fucking bland, banal, vanilla. They got no fucking opinions. Their opinion is whatever they think is going to get them the most traffic next time they decide to play a game or decide to go on a stream and do a cast, because they know that esports is so small, you almost directly convert those numbers to money in your pocket. And that's why, people like me are considered I am really fucking dull, I think, actually. But I wish, no, listen, I'll tell you what I mean by that. I actually think, all I ever do is just say whatever the fuck is on my mind. That shouldn't be, abnormal. That should not be abnormal. It's
absolutely abnormal. What do you mean? Most people filter themselves.
We get called oh my god, you're such an asshole. We're the most diversive and mad, crazy personalities ever. I'm an old dude. I'm a 30-year-old fucking esports journalist. How boring is that? It don't get more boring. And yet people think I'm wild, and it's not because I'm wild. It's because everyone else in esports is just saying whatever they have to do and sucking whatever dick they have to do to get paid.
Let's talk about whether it accomplished anything that you wrote this. I know you got a lot of shit for it. Don't blame me for nothing.
Thorin, how much dick have you been sucking in esports to get paid?
Mate, I went for 8 years without making minimum wage in esports.
Yeah, me and Thorin are the
you got
guys.
to see a lot of cock.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah,
and I don't have any insider.
Are you trying to insinuate that that's a form?
Secret info. I got
Well, I don't know. I don't
benefit for saying shit that people don't like. I can't think of anything I've gotten off it.
Oh,
it makes
okay. So first off, Richard, I think looking back at those articles and seeing if anything was accomplished.
Journalism sounds bad. I don't want to be a journalist. You guys are angry.
Well,
I want to be a TV star like Destiny. Look how happy he is.
I know. We don't get a bask in adoration just by fucking firing up the game.
So the thing is I feel like you did accomplish something with it, Richard. I mean, you accomplished. I don't know if you accomplished exactly what you wanted, where you want these people vilified. I don't know, but you made these people fulfill their promises that they were potentially. Who knows when they were going to fulfill?
It's still outstanding now.
Some of them, but some of them have been fulfilled. Right?
They are, but
all I achieved was pushing EG and people like that into a PR.
Dude, have you seen how much shit Artosis has gotten?
Yeah, here's something
in the recent history. I mean, he's gotten so
something-
much shit recently.
Here's something
Right?
that I'm going to suggest. Okay, I'm going to step out and I'm just going to suggest this to you. This may or may not be something you already do. You may used to have done this and you've decided it's bad, and you may think I'm full of shit and you don't want to listen to it, which is fine, anything, because I'm still young and I'm still learning. But for me personally, one thing that I did since the very fucking first day I streamed, since literally the first day I streamed, what I would do is I would stay in my chat, right? After I finished streaming, I would stay in my chat and just read what the people were saying, right? I would look up every fucking Reddit post. I would read the 4chan threads and the StarCraft 2 gens.
By the way.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would be drinking up, but I would do it with a clear state of mind. I would be reading everything, right? Because the idea is, at any given time, no matter what has happened in the past 3 to 3.5 years, I've always known what the community thinks about me. Whether there are certain things I do that it's really annoying, whether there are certain things I do that are really funny, I've always had a good idea of what the community knows about me, always. One thing you have to be careful is you can't just look at one outlet and think that everybody thinks that way. I don't know if you want to call it market research or looking into your demographics or whatever you want to call it. You have to have a receptive ear to what everybody is saying about you on all sorts of different forms, because and I've read enough to know what most people think about most people in the StarCraft 2 scene, right? Just by nature of me reading everything about me, I read everything else, right? And what you've said has almost become a meme, in that there are a lot of threads where Artosis or the Sons of StarCraft stuff will be brought up, and that Broken Promises hashtag will appear in a lot of those threads. Like, I would be shocked if somebody were to tell me that at least 80% of the community wasn't in favor of the kind of outing that you did of that group and wasn't still on your side, and 80% is low, wasn't still on your side in regards to them kind of screwing the community over what they've done. Like, every time there's a post regarding Artosis or Taosis or the EGM group or all of that, or the MG group and all that shit, everybody's always bringing up your article in a positive way, even if they're doing it in a roundabout memetic way, like, oh, Broken Promises, you know? So I think it's really strange for you.
No, but loads of those people aren't in favor of doing anything, Destiny. Like I said before, they want to be like the hipsters, like, oh, I already knew that anyway. So what's the big deal, man? You think you're going to save the whole community by doing this shit? Who do you think you are? You're trying to get all these hits?
Okay, but that's a far cry from everybody is posting against me and saying they hate me and saying they don't like it. I don't see that.
I'd be all right with that. Like, if you don't like me as a person, based on what you've seen about me internet-wise, I mean, A, you're a fucking retard if you're making that sort of assessment anyway. So I'm not bothered about it. You know, like, I mean, but what I'm bothered about is when people denigrate the work or try and make out that, like, I actually don't genuinely care about driving crooks out of esports when I clearly do. Because if it was a money maker and it was a hit generator, everyone would be doing it. Too Good would be doing it. Fucking Total Biscuit would be doing it. Everyone on Day 9 would be doing it. Everyone would do that. If that was what made money, that's what everyone would do. If being a watchdog was what made money, that's what everyone would do. But it isn't. It's actually quite hard, and it sucks to have to be the guy to do it. Like, it really does.
James, you gonna say something?
No.
Oh. You could work for ESAT. You could work for ESAT.
I mean, if you leverage
Express,
it right, Watchdog stuff can make a lot of money if you leverage it right. I made a lot of money posting that owned article on my website. I got a few 100,000 hits. I think I got almost 500,000 hits on my website on that specific page.
Well, you have to be.
Well, I mean, that's not how I make the majority of my money. So I mean, I don't know what is 500,000 hits worth on Google AdSense? A couple $100. I mean, that's not a lot of money, but. Sure.
Anyway, I don't want to keep on it because I feel like because of the Broken Promises thing, it's like it's all about me, and
well, I mean, what we're getting at is basically, I mean, even with Thorin's comments, is that we shouldn't write editorials anymore that are going to be.
By the way, that's absolutely correct. By the way, like, I'll tell you something.
God,
okay, there's something people probably don't know about me in the scene. Well, are you going to invalidate my own experience of my own life, bro? Or can I maybe tell you?
No, I know.
Okay. So when I came into the scene,
it's just disheartening.
Why is everyone else like drinking and?
I never posted comments, okay? I never posted like comments about players or matches. I only posted my content to the StarCraft Reddit. But what happened is the StarCraft Reddit is moderated very loosely, and so you're allowed to post as much content. You don't have to post any comments. It doesn't matter, right? They won't remove your stuff. But on League of Legends, they actually have really strict moderation, where because the subreddit is so big, they claim that like Reddit itself forces them to have like ratios. Like, you have to post 9 things for every one thing you post. That's actually so actually that's true. They kept taking my stuff down because I wasn't posting comments. So I had to figure out a way, right? How am I going to generate 9 comments for every one thing I do every couple of days? So I don't want to just post completely worthless shit like, oh, good game in like every thread or whatever, because that'd be pretty worthless in itself. So I thought to myself, like, I'll try and make it real opinions. So I'll try and find something that I actually want to put an opinion about, right? As soon as I started doing this, I got tons more downvotes and I got way more negative reaction of people saying mad shit like that I'm outspoken, etc. Like, if someone doesn't contact me for an interview or put a mic in front of my face, I would never say any of these opinions because I don't really give a shit what anyone thinks. I'd think the opinion in my own head, go on with my life, problem solved. So actually what's ridiculous is you're saying that as though it's like a glib statement, like, oh, so we shouldn't write editorials. Bro, if I never wrote a single opinion and all I did, like, think about how vanilla my work is. I just do interviews with players about their career. Stuff that's like it's a slam dunk that people are going to like that. I do articles about like players' careers. There's nothing controversial in that whatsoever. There's no reason just on that work alone that everyone would hate me or anyone would hate me in general, unless they just thought it was boring, in which case they'd just ignore it, you know. It's only when you introduce personality that people find a reason to hate you, even if they like the work, or because they don't like the work. Like, now the reason they don't like it isn't because of the work, it's because they hate you and they don't like your opinions and you're outspoken and who do you think you are tweeting that person and keep your mouth shut and who do you, everyone, you're trying to make yourself a big deal. The whole projection thing comes into it, which is a waste of time because, like I said, in my particular case, I actually am not doing it for that reason anyway. But it's true. You actually damage your own career. Like before, when we said about doing this clickbait, okay, gets you more money and gets you more views, I would argue that going against clickbait stuff would make you more successful in the long run. because people would have no reason to hate you and downvote you. Because nowadays, every metric is based on getting high on Reddit. So every downvote is like really, really bad for your career. You guys might not know this because maybe you don't work on this metric, but I've studied this stuff. That's how I make my living.
What do you?
Wait.
What? No,
You
wait.
make
That's
your living
absolutely
off
incorrect.
Votes.
I literally make my living. I now make, too good, over 3 times the salary I did 2 years ago. The reason why is purely because of League of Legends Reddit. Because what happened was I used to do content where, like, in League of it's so niche because it's like long histories about people's careers that in a small game like Counter-Strike, like maybe 5% people care about it. So those hits aren't enough to get you any money. You get the minimum amount. And I used to work a separate job that didn't even pay me to do those long articles. I did those on the side as like a thing I wanted to do to get past doing the janitorial shit.
Because you enjoy
Here's
doing
the thing.
it.
But then I found in the League of Legends community, because the community is so large that now my niche is actually fairly big. And so because I put my stuff on their Reddit, I could get it to the top and I could get tons of views. And because of those views, that's when I could then justify being picked up by a big site to get paid loads more money. So if it wasn't for
Who'd you work
upvotes,
for
I
now?
would on Gamers, the site that Slasher works for, etc.
Oh, right, yeah, that one.
I don't know if you've heard of Slasher, James. Have you heard of him?
Oh, that
the
just
newcomer,
pisses me
the
off, though,
whippersnapper.
Thorin.
Like this
Yeah,
whole
but-
notion that in esports, if you do good work or whatever, you'll get taken care of is like a complete myth. You have to do good work and know the right person and have the right image where people will upvote that work. And you also have to not say press the wrong hot button words that you shouldn't say right now because otherwise we're all going to downvote you. The whole thing's like a joke, mate. It's like running a reality TV show while doing serious work at the same time.
Well, so the question is, so when I said that we shouldn't write editorials, then is it really just
No,
the
you
right
can write
person has
editorials
to?
that people
Well,
like.
is it the right person has to write the editorials?
Yeah.
Is that really the case?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The right
The-
person has to be, and you have to understand the community as you read it.
Okay, if Too Good wrote the same editorial as Richard Lewis, right? But he obviously he wouldn't write in the same voice, so it would be slightly different. But same
Yeah.
basic facts covered. Too Good's article would be like people make out like he's a fucking he's like the revolutionary who's going to lead us from like the evil empire, and like if we all just follow Too Good, he's going to do all the shit. He's just a guy who talks a lot of bullshit, but some of it's really entertaining, some of it's on point, and as a result, the good stuff is good. But don't act like it's all amazing.
Okay, yeah, but you got to be careful there because
You could be my PR manager. I pay more than on gamers.net. I pay for downvotes, baby.
regardless of how retarded Too Good may or may not act, you can't discredit that a lot of work goes into creating that image. Like, yeah, there are certain things that I could get away with saying that maybe Richard Lewis can or maybe you can't, but that's not by accident. It's not just random chance that I could post a certain article about something and get a lot more views on it than somebody else. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into creating a specific image that garners certain types of views for certain types of contents that allows you to say certain things, right? I mean, it's important to take that into account too when you consider what somebody can or cannot do in a certain form, no?
You seem to be under the
Right,
impression that this is some egalitarian system where if everyone just does it right, then it'll all work out. That's not the way it works.
no,
mate. Even if you just
God,
meet
no,
a group of
no, no,
people,
no,
they
no.
might dislike you for reasons
I'm
otherwise.
not. Trust me, I swear,
But-
maybe years ago I've been that naive, but I'm not that naive anymore. I'm just saying that the idea that you can't post something inflammatory and get paid on it is ridiculous. You can, you just have to understand the community that you're posting it to really well and the environment that exists at the time. You like, say you have something bad for the League of Legends community. If you have something negative to say about CLG, there were periods of time where you could post that and be fucking annihilated, and you would never do anything in the League community again. And there are other times where you could post it and you would be fucking front page, savior, millions of fucking views for saying it. Like, you just have to understand the environment that you're like putting that opinion into.
Yeah,
and
you
what
have
the
to
current-
know which way the circle jerk is blowing, and that's when you post it or you don't. Except that's
Exactly.
not how journalism works, mate. You post it because it needs to be said, because you need to say it. No one actually... who are these people who selectively decide, oh, I'm going to write about this topic now? You're compelled to write the subject, so you do it. The fact that you manage to get paid and get a job out of it is sort of like a trick. You do it because you're the person who has to write that thing. You don't sit down and go, right, well, I've done my metrics here, guys. I've studied that the community wants me to write about this subject now, and so I'm going to write about it. And like Destiny says, I've been reading all these comments, and if I present it in this right way, it might go really well. Like, that's like hindsight trying to get things correctly done. Like, you can't do that for these
No way,
things.
that's not hindsight at all. Like, this is the point where we have to step aside and we got to say, okay, like I really want to do this, but at the same time I have bills I need to pay, so you need to figure out a way to do it in such a way that you can still get paid on it too, you know? Like I understand the desire to, I've got this thing that I want to write about and it's my opinion and I want to be pure 100% journalist and fuck the world, I'm going to write the articles that I want and my Pulitzer Esports Prize is going to come to me for being a really good writer. But you and I both know that that's not how it actually works, right? So you have to find a way to navigate the environment based on the current ideas so that you can try and push as much material as you want to while still taking advantage of the current kind of culture, circle jerk, whatever you want to call it, that's going on about the topics you're writing, no?
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not. The reaction is never proportionate to what you do, okay? Here's the problem. Say you do 9 good things. Okay, I'll give you an example, right? If someone hands you a sandwich that's made out of 9/10 shit and 1/10 jam, you wouldn't call that a jam sandwich. But the way esports works, they would call that a jam sandwich. Because what happens is if you do the one wrong thing, now that can be used against you to bully you and say that the 9 good things you did mean nothing, they're worthless. That's why I'm saying that in this particular example, it doesn't matter what the article was like. The same people who dislike the Richard Lewis stuff from something else will now attack it for that reason, not on the merits of what it's done. Which goes into other bullshit like people like drama and all. Yeah, we all know all that stuff. I'm not even arguing against what you're saying. I'm just saying this is like the way things are. But you sound like you're saying, oh, they're like this right now because we all haven't realized there's just a better way that we could do things. Like, I don't know of that way, mate. If you do, then
no, I'm talking. What do you mean? No,
me.
you're saying that we're on completely opposite sides of the fence that we're actually on. What do you mean? You're telling me that you as a journalist are this pure-hearted embodiment of love for journalism, and you want to write these articles when you feel like it, blah blah blah. And I'm telling you that that's great and you can do it. But if you want to do it and make money off of it, you have to understand the circle jerks. Like you can't. All the articles that you write don't get published into a vacuum. There's not the vacuum of esports journalism. Journalism exists alongside current events. And it has to be part of your job to understand what are the current events, what are the current circle jerks. Like as a journalist, I mean, I'm speaking a little bit out of here because I'm not a journalist, but it would seem to me that as a journalist, I know that as a streamer, any comments that you make are going to run alongside those current circle jerks and those current attitudes about whatever it is you're talking about. And I know that for me personally, I have to know what the current thoughts are. I never, ever, ever just say anything about a topic, assuming that I'm spewing that into a vacuum, because there's always some kind of dialogue going on about the events that you're talking about, and it would behoove anyone to ignore that kind of cultural dialogue and just assume that they can say whatever and that it'll just be evaluated on its own merit, you know, irrespective of everything else going on, in my opinion.
I feel like we're going around in circles here, 'cause I don't think anyone ever argued.
I think we should move on.
There's so much bad stuff to talk about, Chris, isn't there?
Yeah, I'll just end it with I don't know. It's just kind of disappointing for me because you guys are the ones that will write these articles, and I think these articles need to be written. And it's sad to hear. It's just sad to hear that it's so negative.
I'll tell you
negatively
what,
impacting you guys.
I think the one thing that I probably need to do is not do shows like this next year. I think, listen, right? Not like not ChanManV shows. But just shows. I think once you create a personality for yourself and people focusing on that, it just totally detracts from your work. And you either have to exist on the page or you exist on screen.
Oh man, I'm going to talk to you offline about this stuff. But let's
move
on. Let's move on.
I wish I would have never gotten into streaming because it's just been negative for me.
All right, let's move on.
I wish I'd actually listened to ChanManV when he posted that massive list of topics we could all talk about. So like fucking 7/10 of the show wasn't stuff that I don't give a shit about. And maybe stuff that happened in 2013 even, esports. Anyone care about that?
Hey, you just went on.
We're moving on. Gotta see Richard was quiet for a long time. We gotta give him some love. Yeah.
We should go for a break and then come back.
All right, let's go for a break.
It's gonna be the year of Hearthstone, I think.
Because I need to become a journalist. I've heard so much good things about it.
All right, we'll be back, guys.
Yeah.
2 good. 4.
Fuck you.
All right. It's the love today, man. The love today. All right, so we're going to move on. We're going to talk about teams and teams shutting down and just some contraction, I guess you could say, particularly in the StarCraft 2 industry. I think we're seeing a lot less players on teams. I mean, teams having smaller rosters, and again, just teams shutting down in Europe and in Korea. So, are you guys seeing the same kind of trend, and do you see this continuing in 2014?
Is this for StarCraft 2?
Yeah, StarCraft 2 particularly.
Because you have to realize in League of Legends it's the opposite.
Yeah,
it's getting bigger and bigger, and actually it's heading towards what Brood War was, where they have these massive Kesper teams, and Kesper's going to get involved, make their own. So it's going the opposite way there. For StarCraft 2, I actually think the saddest thing about StarCraft 2 is that the Korean scene has always been in this crippled state like this, but it just managed to survive based on stuff like 8 GSLs per year that people watch, enough interest in foreign players going to other tournaments, that because there was no region locking, that they could win enough by placing in the top 10 of, like, I don't know, fucking 8 tournaments and make the money. The whole StarCraft scene in Korea, for the Korean StarCraft 2 scene, has always been a joke, where there's all these stories, right, of like teams like, I gave the example before, Marine King Prime, because this is a crime, right? A guy who made it to the finals of what, like 4 GSLs, and then he's made it to all these other top 8. He has an insane record, and yet the amount of salary this guy's made in his career is a fucking joke. There's people who are streamers in the West who've made like 3 times more money, you know. So that's like an indictment of like their whole scene, that they can't convert that into money. And part of the reason they can't is because
fair, is it?
What?
Like,
your turn
life
to talk,
isn't
mate?
fair. No, sorry, your turn. I'll go next.
Continue, Thorin.
So
Continue.
too good as the angry drunk, I guess.
It just it just hit me.
Continue.
Was that really what I was arguing, that life is fair?
No, but you're basically saying that
on, make it
StarCraft
funny,
in
mate.
Korea is bad, and that people
Fucking hell.
over in the Western scene that stream make more money, and that's bad.
No? When did I say that? When did I say that was bad?
Well, you said it was like bad for the StarCraft scene in Korea.
I said it was a tragedy that someone like Marine King Prime could have that career and not be able to parlay it into any money. Meanwhile, I gave the context that someone in the West who isn't even a pro player is making more money. Can you see how that would be a relevant point to connect? Or did I just say that it's a bad thing?
Well, you said it was a joke, but the point being is like he wanted to be a StarCraft pro gamer, and he knew what he was walking into.
No, he didn't, because he came from Brood War, and so in their scene, the way the Korean society works is like this, mate. All the people who are older than you are in charge of you to some degree, and so what you try to do is you find like someone who's like a father figure, who's like the leader of your team. You let him handle all the business. You just play. That's your job. Is just every day, Marine King Prime wakes up and he just goes, how am I going to become a better StarCraft 2 player today? So his only way to be successful is he becomes the best StarCraft 2 player he can, and he hopes that this guy who's above him has gotten like the finances in place to get him money, has gotten tournaments that he can get flown to, has gotten the money for next month's rent. If that doesn't happen, Marine King Prime's shit out of luck. And that's what's happened to the whole scene over there. Even those Kesper pros who you heard about making these ridiculous salaries, that was while Brood War still existed to a degree, so the television audience was still there for Brood War. Going into StarCraft 2, maybe they can have OSLs. That's all fallen by the wayside. You see these Kesper teams dropping like flies. Now they're Pro League. The guy who runs it is like fucking begging people in the West to watch it because no one gives a shit. So what will happen next is, you'd think if StarCraft 2 only existed, what would actually happen is the whole scene would collapse. Like Samsung would stop sponsoring Samsung Khan because it's a waste of all those $1 million. That won't happen because now they've all got League of Legends teams. And so now the same thing's happening there. You get lots of viewers there. They pump all the money into the League of Legends side. So esports will be fine in Korea, but StarCraft 2 will continue to die and decay like this.
Yep.
I think that
okay.
I think that a lot of people.
Wow.
Did that just happen? That silence. Did that really just happen? Did you really just do that, Jay?
I think a lot of people take for granted. A lot of people take for granted how big Brood War was in Korea in regards to popularity amongst people that like watched it and played it there. Like Korea, and really, I want to say that the numbers for like one of the last fucking Brood War events, it was something like half of every Korean male high school student like tuned in to watch. Like they were fucking massive deals, and the fact that we've kind of flopped on that is really strange and leaves us in a really weird place where like the best players are still in Korea, but there's not really that much of an infrastructure of financial support in Korea for StarCraft 2 anymore. And it's something that a lot of people, like if we lived in the West, we don't really have a connection to that. And it's a lot harder to see. Like I think there are still a lot of people in the West who assume that, oh, well, Korea and StarCraft 2, it's getting a little bit smaller, but it's doing fine. It's okay. Like they still got money, blah, blah, blah. Not realizing that, as Thorin said, someone who could be as famous or as popular as Marine King Prime is all of a sudden, fucked, has to beg Reddit for money to go to tournaments, or is trying to find all these ways, regardless of how successful he was in the past, just to be financially okay. Not even making a lot of money like maybe MC or somebody else who wins tournaments is, but just to be like okay. The fact that he has to struggle now kind of says a lot to where the StarCraft 2 scene is in Korea.
Thing is, the way Too Good addressed that there is exactly what I was referring to before about the reaction to like the esports promises things. People don't say you're wrong, that's not true, I don't believe that whatsoever. What they say is like they want to be like too cool for school. Like, yeah, but who cares? Life isn't fair, man. You know what? Be a little African kid in Somalia. You're not gonna have enough food. Yeah, who cares, man?
But the point being, it's like you're basically saying, oh, isn't it a joke that the amazing StarCraft 2 player in Korea doesn't make that much money? And then you also referred, and you did refer to some Western players who are streamers that make lots of money, and that's the state of StarCraft 2. But that's also the state of a growing industry. It's like, oh yeah, shit, I don't have access with my pro team because I'm from Poland to American budgets, and there's a lot more money in America.
I don't think
if you give that example, that's a great example. But I'm talking specifically about Korea, which was at a higher level of esports than the West was. And so it's not that the West has grown and gone past it. It's that we've met in the middle somehow, and now we're going past it. For League of Legends, their scene's still up here. But for StarCraft 2, that specifically Korea is the one going down because they don't have any way to make money. People in the West don't even want to see them. They want to have them banned from tournaments. The reason I always bring up the Western example like that is because the actual sentiment on Reddit is the other way around. It's like, oh, these poor NA pros, they can't get into the top 16, They only practice 3 hours a day, but how are they supposed to compete with this Korean guy? Like, oh, the one who practices 12 hours a day or something. Yeah, I feel really sorry for this NA pro. He should have all that money, really, shouldn't he? Considering that other guy's living on fucking ramen with like 10 guys in a bunk bed. Yeah, what a fucking cunt he is. Let's ban him from the tournament, shall we?
Hey,
let's get fucking Desro into NA WCS. That's what we really want to see, right? We don't want to see this shit guy who's a B-teamer and who's played his whole life and ran away from the home and he had to go to Seoul and give up everything. And if he fails, he's a fucking failure in life. He has to go immediately to the military and his family will just like disown him. Yeah, let's just worry about the other guy with the big beard. I mean, he wants to get in WCS.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, for starters, I love ramen.
Wow. I mean, that was a lot right there.
For him. And, I just want this guy's PayPal account. That was touching. Like, where can I send money? Is that going to help esports?
Like, you know what's funny? I'll tell you a reason that people don't know about Korean esports. That is one of the stupidest misconceptions in the world. It goes like this. The reason NA and Western pros aren't as good as Koreans is because gaming isn't accepted in the West like it is in Korea.
Right.
Like, it's the opposite reason. Because gaming is totally not accepted as a career path in Korea, you have to go fucking all in, give up everything of your life. And at that point, becoming the best pro gamer is your only chance. Otherwise, you're a failure in everyone's eyes. And so in the West, it's the opposite. You can dick around for 2 years trying to be a LoL pro. And if it doesn't work, you know what? Just pick up those course credits you had at uni, do something else.
That's not true.
But I agree. It can be. It sounds quite sad for it. But
where in the United
States, pro
States?
gamer's choice to be a pro gamer.
Where in the United States can you drop college for a few years to try to be a pro gamer and not have everybody think you're a loser?
If you pick it up again in 2 years and you complete your course, who would even care 10 years later?
It's true. I mean, nobody's going to care if you finish, you graduated the degree, and you're 2 years older than all the other kids that graduated with you. Nobody's going to care.
I guess, but I mean, still, that's a little bit disingenuous to say that there's like a lot of support in the Western scene for you to go and try to be a pro gamer for 2 years.
I didn't say that, mate.
But you make it sound like anybody. But not anybody in the West can just drop school for 2 years and go try for 2 years to be a pro gamer. That's maybe if you're like upper middle class and your mom and dad still pay for everything.
Here's the difference. I'll use your exact example there, like someone who just dropped school and he tries to be a pro gamer. Here's the difference, right? Because the Western scene is so casual in terms of the pro scene, you can actually you could be like you, okay? I don't know what you did before, but I assume you had a job while you were starting streaming or something, right? And so in theory, you could have some job or you could be doing school and you could be streaming. And in theory, you could get to a semi-pro level. Then you decide, right, do I want to go all in on gaming? If you do, maybe you go all in and you become a good pro gamer. If you don't, you continue with what you were doing. That's not possible in Korea. To even become a B-teamer, you have to give up everything and probably play for like 3 years and have no success on the hopes that you make it. Like, these people like MMA, these people were nobodies in Brood War. They had to like retire because their careers were going to shit. It's only that StarCraft 2 came out, a different game, and somehow they were good in that.
Hold on, we gotta slow down. Because there's a lot of that's just wrong. There are a lot of people that play games and spend a lot of time in PC banks in Korea and shit that aren't part of pro teams, that haven't given up every single thing in college, and that haven't. Like, that's not true that you can't play a lot of games in Korea and be fucked in every other area of your life. No? We can agree on that, right?
I said that again. I don't know what that statement was.
You're making it sound like to play games a lot in Korea requires you to give up absolutely everything in your life.
To make it into the pro scene.
Okay, but I mean, to make it into the pro scene and the Western scene is more or less you have to get. You think that? What do you explain how?
Didn't Scarlett get into the pro scene in the span of like 2 months, without even playing full time?
You think she only played StarCraft 2 for 2 months?
She didn't even have a computer. She was playing on a laptop.
She was, yeah.
Yeah, but she was still playing, no?
By the way, that's impossible in Korea. You couldn't do that in the number of hours she was doing it. I just did an interview, with someone who went to Korea. He's an American guy who was in like a semi-pro team in America in League of Legends. Then he flew over to Korea and he lived there for like 6 months and he tried his hardest to become a pro there. And he told me that something ridiculous, like even the people who are semi-pro, they're not even making money yet, are practicing 10 hours per day. Now, how are you going to practice 10 hours per day and do school or a job? And that's before you make it as a pro.
Has a house and... But like I agree, like if this is the case for it, and it's very interesting and sounds like a fantastic journalist piece, but at the same time it's kind of just like that's the way it is, right? And I never have any sympathy for people with their choices. So the fact is, if these people turn up and they're like, I want to be a pro gamer, and they'll be like, well, you're going to have to give up everything. You're going to have to eat ramen. Every once in a while, this big Desro guy will turn up, ignore him, and then try not to play with him, play with the other guys, and you know, Caldor will want to take you down the gym, and you're gonna have an average, time, and you probably won't make a lot of money. Do you want to be a pro gamer? Fact is, people love playing games, so they probably still say yes.
I'm totally in favour of accepting things as they are, right? But I was asked about will the scene go downhill, so I explained why. Let's do the same thing you just did there and be fair, okay? So you've just said for the Korean guy, he knows what he's getting into, or maybe he has an idea, and he's giving everything up, knowing that that's the price of whatever it costs, okay? So then why are we wasting 1 second of our lives listening to the crying NA person who surely has the same scenario? He knows that if he gets into it, he's probably not going to be as good as a Korean. He's probably never going to get into WCS right into the top of the system. Yet that's the guy we spend 24/7 listening to and trying to. We're having discussions now about how to change WCS to give that guy a chance. So why isn't it like life? Life's not fair, mate. Just fuck off to the WCS Challenger ladder, laters, bitch. Why don't you say that to him?
Well, okay.
I mean, there's more.
You're saying like the situation with WCS. I'm just saying the situation. I'm just saying if you want to be a pro gamer in Korea, the people who have gone for it, and that's their choice, right? But
and the guy who works sewing Nike shoes knows that he's only going to make like $1 an hour, and he has to work a million hours. You get a better job, mate. If you sign up for that, you fucking expect everything you get. Like, are you having a laugh here? So no humanitarian issues exist in the world, James. Why do you live in Somalia? They haven't even got any food there. Move where the food is.
Like, come on, you're comparing living in Somalia to being a pro gamer in Korea. Wait, come on, you're like going crazy.
This kid's fucking crazy. Okay.
The kid that has to work in a tiny shoe factory isn't facing the same fight as Korean that wants to be a pro gamer.
I mean, I can't even talk, man. Jesus.
The Russian.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
I don't even know where to start with that one. I mean,
life's unfair.
Hashtag
so Thorin, are you totally against like region locking then? I mean, I know how much of a purist you are, but I just want to.
First of all, I would, like you're saying that, I would actually be against it anyway, because when I watch games personally, as a selfish person, I want to watch the best games. So that means I want to watch Dare play versus like SOS or someone, right? I don't want to watch. Well, I've already mentioned a million names already. Some shitter in NA that I don't really care about. But regardless of that anyway, even if we're just talking about actually trying to do the best for the scene, the reason why I say I don't want region locking is because you're fucking over the guys who are the Koreans more than you're helping the guy who's the NA guy. The NA guy at the moment, right? Okay, he's playing semi-pro. He can't get into WCS Premier Division, and he's annoyed because he loses to B-Team Koreans every time. And he's like, I've only made $100 this year. Okay, then you continue on with your life. You haven't had to give up much. So out of the choice of who am I going to fuck, I'm obviously going to pick the NA guy who has a way better life than the guy who's the Korean who's given up everything, and make it so that, like, dude, last season, do you know how much money Life made from Korean tournaments? He's one of the best players in the whole world, and he made fuck all, because I think he made one WCS Premier League, and he made it to like round of 16 once. Meanwhile, someone who has the budget, who's a Westerner, who just went to every DreamHack Open, would have probably made like, well, it might not make as much, but he'd make good money. He could go to all those tournaments. And so if you lock them into Korea, first of all, I've already described their system's dying anyway, and they've got no resources. That's like a fucking steel cage death match, or like the Royal Rumble or some shit inside there. You're asking them to like make a life out of that. How are they going to do it? You have to be super good to even get into WCS.
Yeah, but some of that is the culture, though. No. 2014, they're giving WCS Korea more money, And what are they doing? They're putting it all in first place. So I mean that's had a lot to do with their fault.
We didn't bother mentioning. You also got equal money for like winning WCS regions.
Yeah, so it's not going to be equal money, but
some of the other stuff.
But second place, pretty much second place and on, is equal money because of how they're allocating the money. So it's partially, I mean, some of it has partially to do with culture there too. But but arguing against just like having NA folks be, I guess, more prominent or whatever in this more region lock scenario is that like a lot of these people that are popular streamers are NA folks, right? And I think there is something to be gained by seeing some of these popular people achieve something or actually win something, and that helps, I think, the potential community or potential growth.
How does the NA person making it into Premier League, being successful, having fans, help the Korean guy who you just locked out?
Oh,
well,
fuck
like,
the
what's
Korean
the
guy.
It's not. It's about helping the whole WCS.
Does esports exist as a welfare vehicle to funnel money from the Western scene to Korea? Like, well,
Right,
what's our,
I mean,
what are
No,
our
you want it
priorities?
to be
That's not what we're talking
you want to funnel all the money back into NA. You want it to come out of NA, go in a loop and go back into NA. You want a welfare system for the West. You're a fucking socialist, bro. You live in the country that's supposed to be based off how good you are at the game, no matter where you come from. You make it in NA. You want a fucking socialism. Oh no, everyone needs to get money.
All the viewers and all the money comes from the West. Korea can't sustain itself. You're talking about
that's because
Korean.
you killed the scene in Korea that used to like to watch StarCraft.
No. If you want to blame somebody for killing Korean scene, you can blame Blizzard for that, or maybe Riot for making League of Legends so popular. You can't blame the West for. You can't blame.
Blizzard
You can't blame
the West. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Blizzard are a Western company.
Okay, but fucking the average NA or EU pro gamer shouldn't have to bear the brunt of the responsibility. Like, fuck Blizzard, fuck the Korean scene over. So now we need to give up all of our opportunities for tournaments so that we can help.
I mean, Thorin.
Props Korean kids that decided to become pro gamers and like Korea. Like, I mean, I don't think that's fair to burden the entire Western scene with Korea's problems.
Life's not
Yeah,
fair.
but Thorin,
Life's not fair. Wait, now we're gonna start this. Oh
Thorin,
boy!
like
no.
in my opinion, like the way WCS, like if I was doing it, it'd be like, okay, I want to create 16 positions to be in Premiership for North America, 16 positions in Europe, 16 positions in Asia, and lock them for that of America, that of Europe, and that is Asia. If there's twice as many players in Asia, you know, I'm sorry that their field's harder. Like, you know.
Here's the thing. Again, it's not an either-or situation. I'll give you the solution that means that you don't even need region locking. You make the situation so good for them in Korea that there'd be never any reason for a really good pro to want to go to the West. So Tasia is capable of winning GSL in Korea, right? The reason he doesn't, though, is because for him to win WCSNA is way easier. So he's an amazing example, right, of someone who, if the system in Korea, let's say you have the 3 WCS seasons in the West, okay? But let's say in Korea, you have more money at the top placings and you have 5 GSLs. Now, he's going to stay in Korea because if he wins even 1 or 2 of those, he's going to make so much more money that as a result, all the really good players will naturally stay in Korea. And the only ones who will try and go to the other region are the ones who can't cut it in that, which is what you really want. You only want the ones who can't cut it because they're actually of a similar level to the people, and they could probably lose to like the Muslim and people like that online. They probably would lose in the qualifiers. The problem is when you get a really good player from Korea who goes, fuck it, I'll exploit this system because you fucked my system up, so now I only have 3 tournaments a year. Why don't I go play in the 3 foreign tournaments? So it's not an either or. There's a way to solve both scenarios without it being this or this. There's a middle path that actually combines both without cutting anyone out and
But
encouraging
you're talking
both.
about subsidizing a dying Korean scene that's going to continue to die, even if you